Hi, I'm Mike Thompson. I'm back after a bit of a break. There's been a lot going on, and one of the things that's been going on is the Alexander now has a dust collector attached to the back. I don't have the cyclone or anything set up yet. This is just the impeller and the plenum used to suck the air. This was a really fun project. I hadn't built an impeller like this by hand before. I had done one on CNC, but this was pretty darn easy, really. And I had that extra shaft already sticking off the back of this motor. And I told you long ago that when I built the Alexander, that eventually it would have dust collection built in. Well, now it does, and it's just about ready to use. But that's probably going to be a separate video. Let me show you in this video how I built this impeller back here. My first inclination was to build this out of sheet metal. So I'm making some blades here. Then using my bead roller to roll a stiffening bead right down the middle. Because it's thin sheet. It's 26 gauge. And without this, it's really just, they're totally flimsy. So with the bead rolled, then I can fold over each end here in my brake. And I have a nice little matching set of blades with a little Z-bend. Pretty slick, huh? And then I use my nibbler to cut out 2 circles. And these 2 test blades here look pretty good. However, turns out this wasn't going to work because the whole thing was just too flimsy. I wasn't able to make it rigid enough for what I wanted. So, back to the drawing board. And cut a wooden circle on my table saw with my wooden circle jig. Not half bad. One more to go. Oh, look, it's done. How about that? And so now I'm using this trick here to find the 6 points of where my 6 blades are going to be. With a compass and a straight edge, you can draw a hexagon. And my center circle here for where the intake's going to be, or the ends of my blades will stop actually on this wheel. And like so, yeah, like that. And a similar circle on this one for the intake. Okay. Now this is a spacer for the router, 3 inches wide, to get the center of that router bit on my lines I just drew. And this is going to be one of the blades. Well, several of the blades actually. Okay. And now I'll cross-cut several of these blades. Notice I had that piece in there against the fence before, so that it doesn't kick back at me as I go to cut them. This is an ideal job for the cross-cut sled, really, but this works just fine. I should have had the camera on the other side. Maybe the lighting was bad. Or maybe the dust was bad. I don't remember. But, so now each of these blades is going to go like so, and there will be 6 of them along these lines that I just drew a minute ago. Okay? But they need to be down inside something. So I've got my spacer here, and I've got a false fence. I'm lining this up so that it's much easier with this 3-inch spacer. And then I'll clamp my little fence down, and then run my router along the fence, like so. Using that spacer was a lot easier to align this than it would have been to measure it. And then so I'll route from the edge to that inner circle. Because there's no reason to route all the way across. I don't want to weaken it, and I want to make sure that I've got enough wood there for my mount later. Hey, bub. All right, 1 groove down. This actually was pretty easy, and it's pretty satisfying to create 6 perfect grooves like this. But that's how you do it with a hand router, in case you don't happen to have access to a CNC. Just like so. All right, and then I'll do the same thing for the top. This part of the job's boring. But 5/8 will allow that shaft to pass. I'll have to chisel a keyway here in a minute. This is the one little flourish. It's my custom 3D printed hub. Using the drill bit here to align it so that it's centered. And then drill in some pilot holes for my little bolts. Actually, I'm using these machine screws that I have a whole ton of, but you drill the hole the right size, and it threads into wood just fine. I did the same thing for the Alex sanding disc, so I know this works. And screw them in just like so. But it's a 5/8 shaft with a 1/4-inch keyway, and that was printed in. And then I had to chisel, the keyway to get through that hole. And a sufficient amount of glue and some coaxing, and these blades pop right in. And a hole saw for the intake. I did a whole bunch of math before I got to this point to make sure that this thing was the proper size and would move the right amount of air given the RPM of the motor that I'm attaching this to. All right. And glue for the top. Excess glue, of course, so that it squeezes onto the sides as well, not just the end pieces. And carefully stick this down. Getting 6 things to line up at once is tricky. And then like this overnight. It is cold. I'm ready to go inside. Okay. And then some coaxing here with the 2x2. I have to use my persuader a lot. All right. Well, that's pretty solid. How is that not straight? Look at that. Look at that run out. That's terrible. Okay. Give it a little tappy. Tap, tap, taparoo. Now we're getting there. A little more. All right. Alrighty. Power up. Wow. Let's move it out of the danger arc over to here. Holy balls. Okay, what's the deal with the run out? I'll give that a few more taps with the hammer. I'm gonna get my amp cord and see how many amps this thing's pulling. Only 9 amps. So that means it's only half loaded. But this is, of course, in open air. Blows pretty good. Even with the run out. And it sucks pretty good there. Okay, now I've got to make the casing for all this. Trace my impeller outline here and mark some spots here around the perimeter. I want a spiral, obviously, from the start to the exit. And so I can use this hole saw with some tape on it to get the right diameter so that when I wrap a string around this with the Sharpie on the end, I can get this nice deep black spiral that you see there. You can see it starts on the right, and then after one revolution, it's the proper exit size that I calculated. Get everything lined up here. That looks pretty good. Got to make sure the top and bottom halves are straight. I know I'm going to enlarge this hole to 6 inches instead of 4, because really this makes more sense. And I probably can't cut those blades down, so I'm going to leave them like that. That should be fine. I make some marks here on my wood through my template so that I know where to mount my supports. Make sure that I can see them here. There. Okay. And like so. I guess I'll glue these in. Probably going to need some thicker ones too to back this up. But this is going to support the sheet metal casing. That's going to go there in the middle. That looks pretty sweet. And then this will go on top. Like so. And then I'll put sheet metal flashing here on the inside of this. Nope, that guy's a little loose. Okay. Looks pretty good. And so you can see I had to put a couple thicker ribs here and the sheet metal flashing that I cut with my nibblers fits in there just perfect. And a tiny bit of clearance between this left edge here and the impeller, just like it should be. And it does not hit. How about that? Okay, here we go. Plugging in. We have power. And coming on. That's a lot of air, folks. Alrighty, I think that's gonna work. Let's put the cover on. Alright, now that I've got the cover on, let's run it again. Let me give it a quick spin here. Look, see? Yeah, that's not too wobbly. Looks alright for a hand-cut impeller. Alright, power up. Wow. It's going to work. Now I've just got to go remount the table on the sander side. And so I designed and printed this piece to adapt this dryer hose to the exit of my impeller. And these little clips here clip in, and this will allow me to screw this to the edge of the impeller. This was the best mounting system I could think of that gets the job done. And it's pretty simple, really. And then here's the plenum that makes use of the space between my studs. Had some scrap plywood here and some gasket material to seal around that so that when I butt up against this, it will suck. And then the hoses, of course, will go either out here or they can also have space on the bottom underneath for some smaller stuff. So we'll see. Here it is, butted back against the wall in place. I need to seal the top and the bottom of that, of course, but that looks pretty darn good. I think that's going to work great. And here's my fitting screwed in place. Well, that's that for now. Now, I guess a couple of things about this. I now have this lower tray here beneath my sanding table. I might leave it, I might cut it off, I'm not sure. This whole thing, of course, had to scoot out about 8 inches to make room for the impeller back here. And so I'm not sure if I'm going to leave this lower table or not. It only sticks out beyond the main sanding table about 2 inches, but I don't know. You know, the less stuff sticks out, the better, I suppose. And another thing is this now, of course, runs a little bit longer than it did before because it's got a lot more inertia because of the impeller back here. But it also is a little bit louder because now you've got the whir of the impeller, which did not have before. It was just the sanding disc. But all in all, I think it's a great trade-off. And this won't just collect dust, of course, from the Alex sander. It'll collect dust from the bandsaw and whatever else I might need. But this is something you can definitely do yourself. Just don't be afraid to try. Go ahead and subscribe if you haven't already. I'm Mike Thompson, and thanks for watching. I really appreciate it.